Hey everyone, today we're going to replace the door lock actuator on the driver's door for a 2007 Honda CR-V. So here we're testing it. When you throw the lock mechanism, you can see that the manual latch does not respond, and that affects the car's ability to lock all of the locks at the same time, and also affects your ability to get into and out of the car when the lock doesn't respond. Okay, so I'm going to take off this trim piece here behind the side view mirror. I'm just going to use a pry tool or scraper, but plastic. So you can also use one of these like Lego brick remover tools. You'll see here there's some metal clips that have stayed inside these channels. I'm going to take a pair of pliers and pull these out. I'm going to reattach them to here and here, so when we put this thing back in, they don't get lost. The same thing here. Okay, so now inside the door release lever, you'll see a little slot right here, and pry that piece right out. There's another plate here inside the handle. Pry this up and out, exposing another screw in there. Take out these two screws with Phillips head screwdriver here. Now, so I don't lose them, what I'm going to do is just take some painter's tape. So it's not pretty, but it does the trick, and it just keeps the screws with the part from that spot on the door. Okay, up here in front of the door handle in the interior, you'll see there's another flap right here. I'm just going to pry that open. And there's the Phillips head screw right there. So we'll take that out now. So a bit of a longer one, just to show you this is what came out. And now underneath the door handle here, there's another flap. And you can see up underneath, there's a little slot right there. Okay. And then you can see right up in there, Phillips head screw. We're going to take that out. Of course, make sure your window is up before you take this all off. We're going to take a plastic tool here, and we're going to work around the bottom of the door and up this side to pry off this inner panel. So I just rested the panel on a creeper stool there. It's just at the right height so that it doesn't bend too much, this piece in here. But I'm going to flip this around to show you now on the inside of the door. So the inside here from another angle, it's this clip here and this clip here. To make this easier to pop out, you can push a little bit from the inside and it should pop out right away. If it doesn't, you can use the plastic pry tool. Either way though, make sure that what's left on the inside of the door, you still have the plastic clip with the metal clip on top. So now, with that out, leaning the door back, the only thing left is underneath here. There's a connector. So I'm going to go down and show you from underneath. So underneath here, you can see on the wiring harness connector, we're going to push on that to release the cable. And once you do that, this just slides right out from here. And now the inner door panel is free. So I'll take this here and we'll slide it out of the way. So now with the inner part of the door exposed to access mechanism itself, which is behind here, we're going to pop off this clip, peel this plastic back. I just noticed here, it's like I broke off a piece from the inside of the door. What I'm just going to do is super glue or Gorilla Glue this back on here. I'll let that sit in place and dry so that when we attach the door, hopefully this won't rattle. Here, disconnect this and pull this out. Push in, and then it'll wiggle right out. So now we can pull back the plastic barrier here. Just expose the inside of the door area that we're going to need to work on. Here behind this is the actual actuator mechanism. You can see the white part here. So I'm going to show you the new part. I'll put a link to the part number in the description. But you can see here, this is the part. It sits behind there like this. And there's this rod that comes up here that attaches to the door latch on the outside of the car and the lock. And so we're going to have to get this disconnected at the top and then get this piece out and through this hole. All right, and then this is a view from the gap between the door and the inner panel. And you'll see here, I'm reaching from underneath. This piece is the top of that metal rod I showed you on the new latch mechanism. So we're gonna have to fish this out. But if you notice, when I pull down on this, it moves the door. Okay, from the top, that's the L-shaped top piece of this rod that's connected to the assembly. So you want to pop this plastic clip back and it slides up. Okay, and then at the top here, we want this to slide out. But to get it out, we have to have the door in the down position. So I'm going to put the camera down. I'm going to get something to hold this lever down, and then that's going to let me pull this out. Okay, there it is. I'm just holding it down with a screwdriver, and I was able to pull the piece back. Okay, here's a view from inside the door, and you can see there's a bar in front of the latch mechanism here, and we're going to have to get this out of the way to get this piece out. To get that bar out that I showed you from the inside, one of the pieces here we're going to have to take off is this bolt where that bar mounts at the bottom. So to take this off, it's a 10mm socket. Okay. Now that piece is loose. So we're going to try to get the actuator out by taking off this Phillips head screw and these 3 Phillips head screws here. These may be very difficult to get out, but in my case, it's not too bad. These are real easy. I think it's because this had already been replaced once before, years ago. Okay, so with these screws out, I just tape them here again. I'm going to reach behind, and if I pull back a little bit, I can loosen that mechanism. Now to fish this out, take this bar that we had removed from down here, and I'm just going to pull it up and out of the way, and then try to jimmy this around and get this piece underneath and out. And once you have that around the front, you can slide the actuator mechanism forward. Now when you slide it forward, you'll see down at the bottom here is a post attached to the inside of the actuator mechanism. We need to disconnect that in order to get the mechanism out. So to get that cable off, I just had to lift up on those 2 plastic tabs. It was just enough to release it, and that'll free the mechanism. And now we can lift out the old lock actuator. So you can see it's a bit different, but it's just because the existing one, the old one, has cover plate here. So I'm going to have to take off a few of these screws to lift this out and get these cable pieces attached to the corresponding parts on this one. Okay, so took out those 2 screws and turn this plate back. Now we can see inside right here that the 2 cables I have to take out. So just pop this out here, and this bends 90 degrees and comes out. All right, so to get this piece out here, what I'm going to do is just hold underneath with my thumb to push and use a flat blade screwdriver. Just be careful not to drive this into your hand. And pop it off like that. It'll spin down, and then now you can pull that out. All right, so I transferred the weather stripping that I could salvage, and we're going to reverse the process. Just going to push this through. When that's in place, I'm going to rotate up, clip that in, and then here, clip that in there. Same thing on the bottom, just going to push it in, and then bend it back, and then clip this in. Going to lay this cover piece back on and reattach it. All right, so now we can fish this back into the door and hopefully reattach everything. Here you're going to see a flat slot, like a flathead screw. We're going to have to line that up with this metal slot, like a flathead screwdriver, for the cable that we removed before we put the mechanism back in place. All right, so yeah, not going to lie to you, that was a bit of a challenge to get that piece lined up and pressed right back in exactly the way it was. Of course, you can't see it, you can just feel it when it goes in, so you just have to be careful. So now we're going to bring this rod back into place and clip it up top, and then we'll slide this piece down like this so that we ensure this rod is behind it. And so up at the top there, I'm going to get that lined up right in there. The trick here wasn't too bad. Again, you have to come in from the top, hold the door down, like this piece come down, hold the top of it with a screwdriver in place from the top, and then you push this piece in, and then you rotate the plastic clip down, just the opposite of what we did to take it out. So just reversing what we did before, I took the tape here and I put the bottom one in to hold this in place, and I'll do the same thing for the top screws. We'll do this screw here. All right, so this metal piece here that we moved out of the way before has to get lined up back down here with this hole. And sometimes it may get pulled out because this has got the weather stripping here as the window will slide down into the door along that channel. All right, one thing to be careful when you're reattaching this piece that comes out for the window track. Okay, that's before you line it up right there. Make sure that the metal piece that slides goes up into this channel and mates with the metal at the top piece there. It separates, but it has to go up and in there, and then squeeze here to make sure you have a smooth channel. Otherwise, your window will not open and close smoothly. Make sure that's lined up and that this track is smooth and uninterrupted, and then we can put everything back together. You can bring it in line with that hole right there for 10 millimeters. Now, I didn't really need to take this off. It was just in case I needed an access port there. And then we're gonna fold back all the plastic, press it in place. Make sure that this hole in the plastic's in place, and we can pop that rubber piece right in there. We'll push this clip back in. We can push this clip in until it clicks. Okay. Now you want to go back just to double check, make sure that these two cables go over this bar here, and that your inside door release is in the same orientation that it was when you took this apart. Same thing for the wiring harness. Make sure everything is back in place. And now's a good opportunity to just make sure you don't want to put everything back together. It won't lock with the door open, so I just manually lock this, and then I'm going to press the unlock button and see if it works. Thank goodness it works. All right, now we're going to reattach the door interior trim. I'm just going to lay the channel underneath on the top so that we can reconnect the wiring harness and then clip this into place. So I'm just hanging it there, and then we're going to come underneath here and we'll reattach that wiring harness. All right, so we got that wiring harness back in place, resting the door on the creeper. We're going to come back through and line up on the clips that we dealt with before here. And this clip right up here. And we're going to bring those right into place like that. All right, so again, to get the door back on, the door trim back on, I hung it on the top hook first. It's a little challenging, but you want to make sure that's lined up. Then just come around and spot check to make sure that all those clips are lined up right in front of their respective mating pieces before you attach the rest of the door into place. Start at the top and I'll just work my way down. Okay, now go back in. I'll attach this screw in here, this screw in here, screw in here, and the two screws in there. This upper trim piece. So just line this up. Make sure those clips are where they need to be, and then just pop that right in. There you go. All right, with everything back together now, check that it works, and it does. So we're in good shape. Thank you for watching.